I have my system and my chaos, but I kind of like have my own little versions of things. Like sometimes I'll talk to a lead until they're warm and then I save them to my phone. Not everybody I talk to is put in command and then put on a nurture system. So it's really like me cultivating that on a very organic level before I put them in my CRM to make sure I can manage them on a high level. But it is all very like just intuition and going after it very organically, like I said, and keeping in contact. I'm not going to add you to my socials until like I feel like I have a relationship with you.
This is the Agent Goldmine, where you'll find real talk, shit talk, and ambition. We're here to build real businesses and be more than your average agent. We want to know what the killers are actually doing within their businesses, the reality of it. All tactical, no fluff. So we're here to find out. Please share and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Agent Goldmine. I am Shelby Johnson, and I'm here with Ali Garcet, and Meredith Rains is in the house. So I have been stalking Meredith Rains on the internet since 2018 when I was a brand new agent at Keller Williams. I was like, damn, that girl be closing. And I've kind of followed your journey just a little bit, get a little support, the likes on the story, all that stuff. But I don't really know the deep dive, and I want to. So today, we are going to learn more about Meredith, who is out of the Fort Liberty, which used to be Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fayetteville market, including Moore County, Southern Pines, all that stuff. She specializes in working with military people. She's been an agent for 7.5 years full-time and has done just under 300 closings total. She currently has 6 pending, and last year closed 48 transactions and $12.4 million in volume, all as a solo agent with a transaction coordinator. And if she was on stage talking about, actually, I don't know if I want to say the part. So with it, that's a suspense builder, and we'll get into what she's really good at with that. Meredith, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start it off going straight in. How are you managing all of this as a solo agent?
I'm a control freak. So I grew up with Keller Williams on a high producing team. So at an early age in real estate, I did learn that customer service aspect of the business. And it was really important for me to make sure that I focused on that. I did learn the awesome, little key component to this of leverage, right? So we had a lot of leverage on the team, but I really was a control freak. So when I decided to go independent end of 2019, I knew that I still wanted a transaction coordinator, but I wanted my hands in almost everything other than that, because I like to manage my clients from day one to beyond closing. So for me to be able to handle that, I would love to say it's beautiful, but it's not beautiful. We're not like super organized, and there's no system for all the systems, right? So it's really just intuition, making sure my clients have a really good understanding of the process from day one. My transaction coordinator is bomb. I know, Shelby, you've worked with her in the past on cross sales, Macy Gifford, and she's just like top notch. So she helps me a ton.
Dude, it's so funny that you bring that up. I hope she listens to this, because there was a time where I was like, yo, girl, like, are you happy where you are? Because she's so good. I don't think it was a cross with you. Meredith, I don't even think we've actually done a cross.
But so it's crazy.
Yeah. But Macy, I know what you're talking about. That girl is fire. So real quick though, she is purely transaction coordinator. So like she doesn't help with any of the leverage until it goes under contract?
Correct. Yeah. So she doesn't come into play until we get under contract. And then she works on the back end. I'm still very hands-on from the time we get under contract to close. But we do have our systems, and we kind of tag team it from that point on.
Where is your business coming from? Can you talk about your marketing strategy or where these leads are coming from?
Yeah, sure. So I think it goes back to when I meet people, I try to just really make sure that they're well educated on the process. So when buyers do pop in my lap and we're chatting about things, we're starting our relationship on that day. And then they're my client for life, right? Like I keep up with them. They feel like they know what's going on. They don't feel like I've left them astray. They feel fully represented. So a lot of my business comes from past clients. Past clients being, buyers turn into sellers, multiple buyers buying multiple homes, investment homes, or, Sphere. So that is like my bread and butter. That's where, I get most of my business. My secondary form of lead gen is agent referrals. I do a crap ton of agent referrals as well, nationwide. I'm involved in a few networks that, we just keep handing referrals. We have great relationships back and forth from state to state. So past clients and agent referrals are my jam.
Let's dive deeper into these networks. What do
Okay.
you mean?
Yeah. So I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams. So we do have various, if you want to be involved in something, there's something, right? Within the big, huge firm of Keller Williams. So one of them is called KWYP. So Keller Williams Young Professionals. And I'm in that network. And I actually happen to be I might not be after this podcast, but currently I'm the only real estate agent in our firm in Fayetteville that is part of KWYP. So if anybody knows of anybody coming to our area within that network, I'm your girl, right? So, and I do have really good relationships with agents in other areas that just happen to know I'm in there. So I get, plenty of leads that way. I also get a lot of education and support from that network as well. So it's not just lead generation in there. You also get, a whole different sphere of classes and all the good things, trainings, events, everything. So I have been involved in that for 2 years now. And I would say this is my first year where I'm actually contributing. I'm like, okay, you got to get out of your shell. You got to meet these people. So it's been really cool.
Okay. So you had the team experience where however the team brought in leads, they probably helped you get those first couple clients. And then once you had those clients, they become yours for life and do more business with you, send you business. And then you also have these networks where they are sending you referrals, which you grab hold of, and they become your clients for life too. When you're grabbing them and you're creating them as your friends for life, are you using a CRM to do this, or how are you touching them for years?
Yeah, so I would love to say I'm big on social media, but compared to some of y'all, I am not big on social media at all. I want to, I aspire to be, and I'm being more intentional about that. But I do think that it's just the easiest way to communicate with your people. Like, I don't need to call you to see when your birthday was. I just saw it, I don't need to call and see what's going on because I just saw you had a baby, and when things like that are happening, if I'm busy, if I'm like a red light or whatever, I'll screenshot it and I'll know that's a really cool end to give them a call and let them know, like, hey, I saw that's going on. That's awesome. Tell me about that. It's not all about real estate. I'm a very organic person. I don't do the call where it's like, and who do you know who needs to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Like, that's not me. So if we're working together, it's probably because I like you and you like me and you know that I can help you. And if you don't like me, you're going to. I'll find a way to help you like me, So that's just kind of what I'm doing. I do use Command through KW, and I've kind of switched up how I do that. It used to be one of those things where, Shelby, you said something. I have to say this because you said something on one of your podcasts about how there are two types of real estate agents, like one who is very methodical and analytical, and one's just kind of like a butterfly,
Yep.
right? So I have my system and my chaos, but I kind of have my own little versions of things. Like sometimes I'll talk to a lead until they're warm and then I've saved them to my phone, So that's kind of how I work with Command as well. Like, not everybody I talk to is put in Command and then put on a nurture system. So it's really like me cultivating that on a very organic level before I put them in my CRM to make sure I can manage them on a high level. But it is all very just intuition and going after it very organically, like I said, and keeping in contact. I'm not going to add you to my socials until I feel like I have a relationship with you, or I feel like you're somebody that I could. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, you just said that you're a butterfly and you don't have systems, but you do have personal systems in which that you operate. And that's something that I think people all the time think about, like, oh, I need systems. But systems don't have to be this crazy, high tech automated thing. I mean, they can, but it can also just be the means in which you consistently do things within your business. And that's a system too.
Thank you for listening. Out of respect for your time, we want to make this show as valuable as possible for you. So if you have any feedback on how we can improve, please let us know. DM us at Ali the Agent and The Shelby Show.
Yeah. No, I learned that early on in my career. I'll never forget it. We were in some class and I was like, we had to look for passwords for something. I don't know. And I was like, oh, well, let me go. And I looked in the back of my planner and I had all my passwords just written down. And everybody else was like looking in their like databases for all their passwords. And I was like, and then the guy sitting next to me was like, that's cool. That's your system. That's fine. That works for you. You know exactly where to find that password. And I was like, yeah. So I get it. I do. I have my systems. It just might not be all packaged up beautiful that it's easily shareable to the masses, but it works for us for sure.
And you mentioned client expectations and educating them. From the beginning, how are you doing that? What are you saying?
Okay. So it depends on, which side of the transaction we're on, obviously. Now, I have always been an advocate for learning and not just being an agent that's out there slinging houses. I want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to know the contract back and forth. So if anybody tries to bully me on the other side, which happens all the time in real estate, I can say, oh, well, paragraph da 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 says absolutely not, So I am just like knowledgeable in what I'm doing. And that way, when I do sit down with a buyer or a seller, it's kind of on autopilot at this point in my career. Obviously, you always have to be fine-tuning and learning how to speak to people. And when the market's changing like it is right now, like you have to change your spiel. But I definitely find myself coming at it from, I'm going to hit you with the facts today. It's going to sound like a lot of information. I love on the buyer side, if I can meet them in person for a buyer consultation, I want to do that. Now, I work in a military community, so a lot of time that's over FaceTime or Zoom or a phone call or whatever my client is comfortable with. And I let them know, like, whatever you're good with, I'm good with. If you want me to text all this, I'll text all this. But I would prefer to sit down with you because I feel like when we see people face to face, that relationship is a lot easier to have. So, and I learned that during like quarantine and COVID and all that stuff, we all stepped away from that. But as soon as we could, I was back in people's faces to meet them at the office, hand them like value and talk through everything. And I've heard consistently that my delivery is very professional and I know how to read the person, so I do a lot of mirror and matching. If I know that my client is super casual and chill, then I'm going to be more relaxed. If I know I have to prove myself to this guy, I'm going to prove myself to this guy, so, and I can do that. I've just learned how to be flexible over the years. And so I'll do that and I'll be who they need me to be while being myself and go through the process from start to finish. Now, for the buy side, when I'm communicating expectations, we are going to go over your out-of-pocket expenses almost immediately. I go over, working with real estate agents because we have to, and then go over like some admin type of stuff and how I do my business. But the next thing I'm talking about is going to be heavy and it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. But I feel like if we have that conversation on day one, then we are not going to be finding ourselves later with like, whoa, I have to spend money to buy a house. What? I want to go over that on day one so I can help you, allocate your budget, plan accordingly, and not get your hopes up if it's not right now. If the answer is not right now, that's fine. I just want to help you set yourself up for success later. And I have found that while that conversation has to happen, it's not happening that often the first time you meet buyers. It's not. And I'm like, how are y'all doing this? I can't. I just have to have that conversation to make sure that we're all tracking. And I made a PDF for it. I probably should have put that in your all's system, but
you still
made
can.
a PDF. It's North Carolina specific though, because it talks about due diligence fees and stuff. So I didn't know about that. Well, but it's really good because it breaks down every term.
Will you pretend that we're your buyers and will you go over?
I knew you were going to do that.
This is normally Ali's role to ask for like a role play.
Yeah.
But I want, we want to know this heavy, uncomfortable day one money talk.
Yeah. Okay. So we can do this. Okay. So I'm going to like skip through the whole like getting to know each other things. And I have like a little roadmap of like the transaction that we go through. Like, oh, you're here meeting with a real estate professional. Are you pre-approved or not? We need to get you. We have all that going. And then while I'm going through the process, whenever we're talking about like the escrow period or the due diligence period, then I'm like, we are going to consult a PDF next that's going to talk about all of the upfront terms and costs associated with purchasing a home. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. You're going to have questions now, but when we're done with this, we'll review that. Is that okay? And of course, they're always like, yeah, sure. Okay, so we go to this PDF that I have, and it says at the front, upfront costs and terms associated with purchasing a home. So this helps us make sure that we're set up for success when it's time to write that offer. So they obviously know they're going to be offering a purchase price, but what they don't usually know when you're coming to North Carolina is that we also have a term called due diligence fee. And nobody likes this if you're coming out of state. So that's the first thing I go over. It says due diligence fee. So buyer, in North Carolina, we have a unique fee that is called the due diligence fee. Now, you can imagine as a seller, you're going to want compensation for taking your home off the market while the buyer decides if they want to buy it, right? So this is what that is. You got some skin in the game. Hey, Mr. Seller, here's some cash in your pocket. I'm going to do my investigation on the home and see if I can move forward in it. That is your due diligence fee. It is a non-refundable fee, and it is credited back towards the closing when you make it to closing. And I say it like that because I want to give them hope that they don't get stuck on non-refundable. So we usually have questions right there. They ask me how much. And I typically, well, I'm so glad you asked. Some agents will sit here and tell you it's anywhere from like 1% to 4%. And I'm not going to tell you that because I don't know the rest of the terms of the offer. Today, we're going to identify what price range we need to be in. And depending on what that price range is, it will determine how competitive the market is in that price range. Now, when we go out looking at homes, if it's a competitive home with multiple offers, we might need to put more in due diligence. If the home's been sitting on the market for a month and there's no offer, well, we might be able to offer a little bit less with due diligence. I'm here to advise you every step of the way. And when we get done with this today, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of homework for me. And that is telling me you're all out-of-pocket budget in purchasing a home. And I want you to know that it's my job to protect your budget. I'm not going to help you spend any more money than you possibly have to get your dream home, but we're going to allocate it appropriately. And I won't know how to do that unless you're honest with me about it. Does that sound fair? So that's kind of my chat around the due diligence fee. And typically speaking, it goes really well, other than like I learned early on when people hear about due diligence fee, they get really scared, right? Like non-refundable. We talk about the pros and cons of it, how if for some reason they have to terminate, it is non-refundable. You know, the seller's probably going on a trip or going out to dinner, depending on how much you've given them. Now, I always try to end on a high note, obviously, because we're going to be doing our due diligence while we're doing our showings. We're going to be looking under cabinets. We're going to be looking around the house while they're measuring bedrooms to see if it fits their furniture. I'm going to be making sure I'm looking for red flags that we know right off the bat. After we have that conversation, we move on to our earnest money deposit. Now, in our market, sellers care more about due diligence than they do the earnest money, but earnest money is held in escrow with the closing attorney. It's credited back at closing, just like due diligence, and it is non-refundable after the due diligence period if you should terminate, unless you're a VA buyer and have that addendum with the appraisal, which I'm sure you guys know about that. Then we go through our home inspections, our appraisal, and the closing costs. We talk about what closing costs could potentially look like for them. But I talked to them about home inspections, what that typically covers and the costs associated, and then any additional inspections that they might want and things we need to look at when we're seeing homes, such as septic and HVAC and all that good stuff. And then I asked them about the homework, about coming up with their budget for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to ask next is so many agents are scared being like, do you have that much? You know, because it's so private and money is just all scary to some people. So what would you say makes you stand out? I mean, this whole thing is amazing. What else on the buyer side and on the seller side? Because I do want to touch on the seller side too. Makes you stand out. What are the questions you're asking that other agents are not?
I think for the most part, it is the clear information that I provide them from the get-go. And I think that they learned on that first meeting that I'm here for them and no one else. And I take that very seriously. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I am so passionate about real estate, and I think that they can see that. I am not like, money is great, right? Like, money is an awesome byproduct of what I do, my earnings, awesome. But I want to earn it. And I can't earn it if I'm not doing my job. And my job is to protect my clients. So I do my best to make sure they feel that when they meet me. And it can't be like neglected. They can see it on my face. When I start talking about real estate, like I'm in it to win it, right? So I think that is kind of the education I provide them, the way I deliver it so directly. And I don't even know that I'm doing it, but I'll finish a buyer consultation. I'll walk out and agents will be like, dang, that was good. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, really? Like, okay, cool. It's just natural to me. And I don't know, it's not something that it can be taught, like grit goes a long way. Like you can learn anything, but I think it just comes down to truly caring about people and hoping that they see that in my delivery and making sure that they know that I'm here for them. I had a seller client crying with me yesterday. I wasn't crying, she was crying. I was comforting her yesterday because she got some bad news at closing. And like she looked to me for like comfort, right? Because she knew I was going to be there for her and I was going to talk her through it. Like people just believe that I'm in it for the right reasons. And I think that that might be, you know, kind of where I stand out. I'm super nice. Everybody will say like I'm super nice, but I'm also super direct and I will advocate for who I need to advocate for. I will not be bullied. I'm not going to be somebody that you can push around. That is why I want to be so educated, is that I can always lean on that, I like a good win-win for all parties involved. And I don't even want to say this out loud, but I have very, very few terminations, like very few. So I think that it just comes down to being a team player and making sure that everybody involved knows that I am a solution-oriented agent. I'm not here for the out. I'm not here just to get to closing. I want to make sure we can be as win-win as possible and that my clients know for dang sure that I'm here for them.
How has your presentation changed based on this market that we've been in?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change has been making sure that my clients on both sides, buyer and seller, understand the market. And they can't do that without knowing and seeing the numbers. I mean, even earlier today, I got so like aggravated because people were on my neighborhood Facebook page just saying stuff about the market that just clearly wasn't true, right? Like there's so much fear out there right now. There's so much false information. And I feel like it's our jobs as real estate professionals to show them, not just tell them, but show them what we're seeing. And so, like, obviously we're monitoring the numbers and we're showing what's going on. The conversation is kind of uncomfortable sometimes because I'll have buyers come in and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a buyer's market now. Like, I'll take whatever I want." And I'm like, "Oh, are you? Like, let's have a little chat about that, like, let's talk about that because what is your price range? That is going to dictate everything. So as the market's changing for us in particular, for our market, it's very segmented in price ranges of where we're seeing the biggest changes happening. So my conversation is different depending on my client, obviously. Now, if I'm talking to a buyer, I'm going to set their expectation of, if you're in this price range, likely you're going to still have to be competitive. I'll gather all the details I possibly can on the front end to make sure that we're positioning you as best as we can in your favor. But just know, if you're looking at this price range, you still might have to come out of, pocket for closing costs, significant due diligence, and repairs might be slim. We're going to try our best, but nobody's going to be able to tell you exactly what it's going to look like until we're there. And on the seller side, it's kind of a similar conversation, but it's just being brutally honest that we're kind of in the unknown right now. We have buyers that are being very, very finicky and picky about the homes that they move on. They're not settling anymore for these overpriced homes that need a lot of work. So I'm having more conversations about how to prep a home for listing, which is good because I like to put my signs in front of pretty homes, right? So I like to have those conversations of, you might have to do a little bit more, and I'm here to have your back. I have somebody for everybody. I can get vendors out here, painters, contractors, whatever you need. But I always provide like a walkthrough and just give a real conversation to them about like, hey, buyers are really picky right now. You might want to go ahead and save yourself some time and money if you just go ahead and do this before we list. And most of them are pretty receptive. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So with every episode that we have a golden nugget that the audience can grab, download, check out on theagentgoldmine.com. What is your golden nugget that you're sharing with us?
Yeah, so I struggled with what to provide, but the best feedback that we get, and like I said in the beginning, I wouldn't be half of what I am without my transaction coordinator. So what I'm providing is our seller under contract email template that we send out when sellers get under contract. Now, if you're my personality, you like bullet points and like quick, like if it's more than this, I'm not reading it, right? But we like to have an email that my transaction coordinator, Macy, sends out to sellers when we get under contract. It's very detailed. I have already set the expectation that I do work with a transaction coordinator. She works as my right hand on the back end. She'll be in communication, throughout the process. I'm still your main point of contact. I'm still here with you. She'll be sending you an extremely detailed email that will set up expectations for what's to come, important dates to track, but just know we got you along the way and we'll keep reminding you. Please just use it as a reference throughout the transaction. And usually they're really amped to get that email because it's something that they can just keep going back and forth to when they see, like, hey, due diligence date is here, closing date's here, when am I getting my money and what does it go to? So this really a good little tool that we provide. And I used to use it, kind of a version of that when I was on the team. And then I kind of adapted it to my own when I went independent. And along the way, we've just kind of keep adding to it when clients come up with questions.
Yo, real quick, this podcast is not free. Cost of admission is sharing with a buddy who'd benefit or throwing it on your Instagram story. Tag us, we'll reshare that shit. Okay, love template emails. So excited. Yep. In this email, real quick, so is it everything from like them to expect? You said key dates and key points. So basically, can you run down what's in this email?
Sure. Yeah. So it's kind of really just a little synopsis of what's happening. She introduces herself of who she is and, what that title means. She'll be hopping on the back end. Then it really just bullet points. Your due diligence fee was X amount of dollars. It's due by this date, or we've already delivered it. Details regarding that. It's yours to deposit. And then it gives like a little bit. Remember, this is non-refundable if the buyer terminates. Like we give a little bit of details in there, like what the different terms are, like the due diligence and earnest money. It outlines how much earnest money and who it's going to be held with because it's held with the closing attorney, the buyer's closing attorney. And then it goes through the due diligence date and what to expect regarding that. Like all negotiations and repairs should be done by this date at this time. The lender will be ordering the appraisal. We'll keep you in the know when that's scheduled. The closing attorney is this person and closing date should be around this date. And remember that in North Carolina, there is 7 days written in the contract. If anybody has unforeseen delays, we're obligated to communicate that. Keys aren't, transferred over until ownership is when the deed records. Like just a really quick breakdown of everything. And it just helps them kind of stay on track and be like, oh gosh, when am I closing? Oh, let me just check that email. But we also are consistently checking in with them and keeping them in the know of what's happening when it's happening. So it just works as something. I find that like sellers, they're excited, they're under contract, and they want to know what's next. And it gives a really great way for her to introduce herself while also giving them something so they can read through and feel like they're tracking along with the whole transaction.
Yeah. So then in that case, if and when dates are changed, is that something that the TC sends the updated ones, or are you doing that?
Yeah, she handles most everything in regards to that. And I negotiate repairs with my clients. I do the due diligence repair requests. Like I'm still here with them through every step of the way, but she's usually notifying them and keeping them abreast of, dates of inspections that happen or occur, or, things that need to, like scheduling closing. She'll handle that. Scheduling any kind of, so I have really good relationships with everybody I work with, including vendors. So this is one thing I've had a really hard time passing off is contractors, like letting her do the estimates for repairs, because I'm such a control freak and I have my relationships with my contractors. That's something I need to fully hand off to her. So sometimes she does some of it and sometimes I do some of it, but we work really good as a team. We also do a group text, and she makes it pretty, titles it with the little emoji at the top and the name of the house, like the address of the house, and we'll have all parties in there. So we're really good about like, I'll jump in when it's my, thing to jump in on, and she'll jump in whenever it's something that she needs to handle. So we work really good as a little team in that regard.
What tools and systems, techie-ish, or apps do you use? Because you mentioned Command. Are there any like little fun things that you love?
So my newest addiction is this little note-taking app on my iPad. I think you say Nebo, Nebo. I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but I am like, since day one of real estate, I've carried around a notebook because I'm a note taker and I don't like typing them. I like to write them. So I've had I think I still have all of my notebooks throughout the years of where I've just taken notes. And then I'm like, oh, I have this iPad I never use, and I have like the pencil. So let me just find a cool app. And Molly White with the Signature Group team, that's the team I came from years ago. We're still really close. And she showed me the one that she used. I just learned this app in the last month and I'm obsessed with it. Like, I love it. You can put in, like, I have a seller and buyer intake form that helps me ask all the questions whenever I first meet them. So I put that in there and I fill it out. And then I have a section around that actual PDF that I add additional notes. So like I have all my buyer information there, timeline, who they are, and then you can go in, you can write, you can doodle, you can do whatever you want. You can actually write stuff and then you can convert it to font instead of your handwriting because my handwriting's awful. So
that's what I was going to ask.
It's really
okay,
good.
so you handwrite it and then it converts it into text, text.
It can, yeah. You just like hit the little thing and it'll convert it all to font.
And then you do what with this? Are these your internal notes or are you sharing these with sellers when you walk out the door?
That's for me. It's just how I manage my life and my notes with my clients. And, while we're having conversations, I'm taking little, notes of everything. Like if they turn around and yell out their kid's name, I'm writing down the kid's name, while I'm there so I can put it in my CRM when I get back home.
Nebo.
Nebo. Nebo.
Okay. What else? Yep. What else you got for us?
Canva. I think everybody says that. Everybody uses Canva. I'm in Canva multiple times a day, almost every day for I think one of the next things I need to do is leverage out some of these things that I'm doing, but I'm in there creating content all the time.
Oh my gosh. If I were to use my own handwriting and use Canva, I would not have a fucking business. It would be so bad. I like hearing the other side of people that are creative because I'm not. Okay. And then you use Command once you have actually have started a relationship with them. Anything else?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. As far as my techie side of things, I'm new to the whole TikTok world pretty much. I'm late to the game on it. I tried to rebel that as long as I could. And finally I'm you know what? It might be fun. So trying to dig into that. So with that comes, CapCut and Captions app and all that stuff. So going down that path of adding more stuff.
You better start dancing. I'm just kidding.
So I was listening to Nelson, right? Nelson was the Instagram podcast you did. I was listening to his and he was saying how he does his fun ones on Friday. I think that's so cool. It's providing value and then fun stuff on Friday. I love that.
He does a really good job. Yeah. And for those that haven't listened yet, it's the episode that just came out right before this, or maybe two before this, Nelson on Wuzu on Instagram. So what does your business look like going forward? Or what are you most excited about next year, in the next 5 years? What does that look like?
So I think for me, I've never aspired since I went independent. I love my independence. So I think people always assume when's Meredith going to have a team? I don't think I will ever have a team because after I went independent, I'm dang, independence is awesome, right? Nobody's waiting on me to show up to the office. I love it. Now, will I implement more leverage? Yes. But I think my main focus this year, I kind of felt like I was going to just ignore what the market was doing. I was still going to beast mode. I was still going to kill all my goals. Nothing was going to affect me. And that did not happen. The first quarter of this year was miserable for me. I was who am I? What am I doing? It shook me. So it really helped me figure out what was important to me out of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So I'm very, very thankful that I had that time because up until that moment, I had never had that pivotal moment that made me really think about things. I was just jamming through. I was doing what I loved. Everything was working out in my favor. Everything was awesome. And then that happened. And it made me really focus on what is so important about all of this, And you guys have heard I love the people. But I also want it to matter more than that. So I actually recently started being involved in kind of sponsoring a nonprofit, non-standard therapies for veterans. And so I'm going to kind of align myself with more nonprofits and things that I can align with. So I feel not only am I helping my clients in front of me, but I'm doing bigger things for bigger people too, on a bigger level. I mean, giving back. Until I learned about non-standard therapies, I was trying to find the thing that I really wanted to support. And in our military community, so many people do get out of the military and they are lost in the sauce. They don't know who they are. They don't know what to do. And you ladies know that, So I'm when I learned about them, I was like, this is the thing that I can help with. Like, I can help here, So I got really excited about it. And my husband's like full on in support of them. So it's just something we really align with. And then just in those aspirations, I also want to align myself a little bit more with the community that I'm so involved in. Again, I was just hustling and bustling through transactions that I kind of lost sight of, like, being involved in these people that I help, right? Not just selling and buying real estate, but also like involved in the community and the things that are important to them. So moving forward, I'm very wordy to say, I just want to align myself with the with the causes that really mean a lot to me. So not only am I helping people with their real estate transactions, but I can help on a bigger level as well.
Life is so much better when you have this like bigger purpose and feeling of impact than I've been through that too, with the like, what the fuck? Why am I doing this? What is the point? So very cool. I'm curious about non-standard therapy. What is that? Apple listeners, this short pause is to ask you for a review. Here's how to do it. Back out of the specific episode, go to the page where you see all the episodes, scroll down, keep scrolling. Perfect. Now tap those 5 stars. Thank you so much. Back to the show.
Yeah, well, Mariah Bardwell, you know her. She was an agent with us and she moved up north with her husband. You guys should give it a Google. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but basically it is, right now they take donations for different ways to help veterans who are suffering from like PTSD and getting out of the military and transitioning and all that stuff. And one of the big things they're doing right now, which is really exciting because I just donated the amount that it costs to do this, but you can go on and you can put your name on as a veteran and they'll send you, like, you guys have heard of ice barrel therapy, right? Like cold plunges. So that's one of them that they're huge advocates for. If you're a veteran and you've had experience, and you can go in there and put, your experiences in the military and get put on their list, and they will send you an ice barrel so you can start these therapies for things like that. So it's really exciting. And then they have other things going on. I don't want to speak too much because I don't know like what's out there and what's not out there yet, but they're always, evolving and creating more ways that people can transition after military life. So super cool.
So I'm trying to look this up right now and I'm having trouble finding it. Do you know like what specific website in case I wanted to look into this later?
Yeah. Let me just make sure I'm not telling you wrong.
Sure. I was curious too, asking with like, I was thinking mushrooms, psychedelics. That's where my mind went. The cold plunge is cool too.
Well, I mean, you can look into it, I'm not going to speak for them. Let me see. It's loading, but I think it's nonstandard.org. And you can find them on Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, nice.
Non-standard.
So we'll plug that
if you want to go to Instagram, it's non-standard vets.
That's dope. Awesome.
Yep. It's really cool organization and something we can all align with here in our community. So it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Before we head to our wrap-up questions, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
Yeah, I think I kind of ended up like touching on a few things. I wanted to just be real about how like it's not all beautiful, like the first part of my year was pretty surprising for me and I had to pivot and I think that's what being a successful real estate agent is all about, is being flexible and understanding that the market is always changing. We always hear that, but in our area, it doesn't change nearly as drastic as like nationwide typically does. So I think a lot of agents have been hit really hard, and those that aren't flexible enough to pivot and figure out what they need to do to align themselves and get after what they need to get after in their business. Well, the numbers are kind of dwindling here of agents falling off the rosters. So you got to be flexible. And then also, like, not everybody is made to be a real estate agent. I think a lot of people talk about how real estate's an easy way to get in here and get rich quick. And that's just not true. And if you want to have a real honest, gritty conversation about what it's like to be a real estate agent for the long haul and not just for a year or two, like, I'm here for you. Like, let me know. We can chat about it.
Preach. Times.
I know. And Shelby, you're great at that too. Like, you're always dropping in, giving me little nuggets of value. And like, that's what we need to be doing for each other instead of just trying to like convince people to come sling houses with us,
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, Meredith, what events are you going to this year? In the next 12 months?
I went to the Keller Williams event mega camp here in August, and then we have family reunion in February. I would like to fill my calendar with some more, diversify my events a little bit more, but so far those are the two that I normally go to.
And so you're in Fayetteville, Meredith Rains, for anybody that has a referral, whether buyer or seller. Aside from referrals, how else can we help you in your business?
I think just keep providing the value. I love your all's podcast, the real gritty, like tactical information. I love that. Keep providing value and then, share the stuff because I'm learning every day. Like I just said, I'm trying to be a lot more intentional about social media and what's the better place to learn from the pros, right? So I'm excited to take some information that I learned from you guys and learn from your other guests on this show.
Before I forget, another conference that you might want to consider is Tom Ferry Summits. I love Tom Ferry. I'm a huge fan. Shelby and I went this year and we loved it. There was so much information on AI and just being progressive and I don't know. I feel like that shit would be up your alley. So you should come with us next year.
I think so too. Yeah, definitely looking into that one.
You should definitely come. And then Real Estate Rockstars too is a great one. And they're actually sold out for this year. So I shouldn't have mentioned it. Now I just look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Tom Ferry. Definitely come to Tom Ferry.
Wouldn't you love to go to Real Estate Rockstars? Because you can't.
Exactly. Okay. So Meredith, where can people find you on the internet? They want more of you.
Yeah. So Meredith Rains Heartsook on literally anything or any variation of those two last names. You'll see it come up anyway. And then mere.heartsook on Instagram, on TikTok. Your Real Estate Advisor 910 was my stuffy business side of things, but you can find my personal stuff. It's a lot more fun.
And for those that are listening and maybe don't know how to spell, Heartsook is HARTSOOK. So you can find her there. Meredith, thank you so much for coming on and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that you had you had to pivot in the beginning of the year. Not a lot of people share that, People will just share the best parts. And this podcast is to show the good and the bad. And, just like what agents are thinking and how they can pivot. And like you said, be flexible. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For anyone that this resonated with, listen to this shit again, share this with a friend where you could help them. And if you wanted to find us on the gram as well, we are Ali the Agent and The Shelby Show. If you want to take the golden nugget from this, go on theagentgoldmine.com. Thank you for your time. Please let us know how we can improve this show. We want to hear your feedback. Please and thank you, and see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening, dude. If you want the golden nugget that this guest provided, see the show notes or just go straight to theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we keep all our resources for you. Till next time.